Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for joining this, the fifth TDL webinar of 24th TDL webinar of 2025. Got a really exciting subject to talk about. One of the most challenging aspects of cybersecurity, which is skills training and recruitment. Are they one and the same thing? We will find out. Anyway, I'm very thrilled to introduce the panel. Before I do that, if you wish to ask a question, please put it into the chat at any time and Steve will pick it up. And if Steve doesn't pick it up, I will forward it to him and make sure that your question gets addressed. So you can do that at any time during the course of the session. The session is being recorded and will be made available shortly afterwards, together with a summary report. So again, thank you for joining. I hope you enjoy the session, and I'll now hand over to Steve Purser, TDL Strategic Advisor, who is going to moderate this session for us. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you very much, David, and a warm good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you may be from my side also. We were hoping to have Daria Catalui with us also this evening. I think she may have, for some reason, had a problem with availability, but let's see if she joins us. Of course, it would be great to have her. So in any case, I'd like to welcome Vanessa, Vice President of Recruitment at Nexova Group, and Nina Olesen, Head of Sector at ECSO and Chief Operating Officer at Women for Cyber Foundation. And of course, it's a very interesting topic we've got tonight. So I think we will not be short of things to talk about. It's something I personally don't know a lot about, I have to say. But I did put together some introductory remarks to sort of guide us a little bit on our way. And to give a few things to think about. And after that, I'm going to pass over to my colleagues. So the skills shortage, let's start with this. I looked up some recent studies, very interesting. So according to the World Economic Forum 2025, they are saying that 67% of organizations report a moderate to critical skills gap in cybersecurity. Only 14% of organizations are confident that they have the people and skills required to meet their objectives. And 23% of organizations recruit outside of traditional cybersecurity degrees or credentials. Then you have the 2024 ICS2 Cybersecurity Workforce Study, which estimates that the size of the active cybersecurity workforce is about 5.5 million globally, which is up 0.1% year on year. The size of the workforce gap, incidentally, they think is around 4.8 million globally, and the total workforce needed to satisfy demand is 10.2 million globally, which is up 8.1% year over year. And then finally, just to get us into the sort of picture, we have the 2024 Cybersecurity Workforce Report released by the Global Cybersecurity Forum and the Boston Consulting Group. And there we note that 4 sectors, financial services, materials and industrials, consumer goods and technology, account for about 2/3 of the cybersecurity workforce shortage. And they're also saying, very interesting in these times, of course, that the lack of diversity is problematic. Although women hold 36% of all technology industry jobs, they account for only 24% of the cybersecurity workforce. So a lot of work on our plate, I think. Last but not least, ENISA's Foresight Cybersecurity Threats for 2030 lists skill shortage as the number 2 threat. But I think one of the things we'll look at today is exactly which skill sets are in short supply. And here the ICS2 study was quite interesting. So it gave a feeling for this by stating that most valued skills by recruiters were strong problem-solving abilities, collaboration skills, and willingness to learn, which I think is really good because that's at least where I would put the emphasis as well on the softer skills, particularly communication. I think this is very important in cybersecurity. The main technical skills missing were listed as AI and machine learning, not surprisingly, cloud computing, and zero trust. But As with all these studies, it's very hard to see how exactly the statistical models work, the sampling techniques used, etc. So I'm sure they're sound, but it's very hard to judge exactly, whether there might be some bias in there due to one or other statistical technique. Maybe we'll find this out in the discussion today. So one of the questions is, should we be looking for exclusively technical skills, or are we also interested in soft skills? And what is the role of certifications in all this? Which brings me on to recruitment. So we have a recruiter with us today, which is excellent. I guess one of my questions is, particularly in the EU, does recruitment work well? Do both job seekers and companies achieve their goals? I have the feeling they don't, and the studies we've just heard about obviously share this opinion. There was a Eurobarometer survey on cyber skills, and it notes that companies are facing severe difficulties in finding appropriate candidates. So more than half of the companies that search for adequate candidates experience difficulties with finding qualified candidates. A big problem, 45%, lack of candidates, 44%. And I could go on, but I won't. Question from my side, being a cybersecurity person, but it's just a layman's point of view here. Do job descriptions used to recruit match reality? I see a lot of job descriptions out there, which I really wonder what they're recruiting for, because having 30 years experience in the industry doesn't seem a particularly good match with cybersecurity as I see it. But okay, personal point of view. How much is copy pasted from existing job advertisements without a lot of thought about, what the local situation is, what is this particular organization's looking for? And I'm sure you've all heard that AI algorithms are becoming more important in filtering out candidates. And there may also be some biases, such as age, for instance, which I've seen cited in the past. And then last but not least, a few comments on the CISO post. CISO as Chief Information Security Officer. So I spent half my life in similar posts. It's evolved a lot, and it is still not very well standardized, I have to say. So I believe, should be a C-level post alongside CFO and similar. Quite often it's not, and quite often it's recruited at a very junior level on highly technical skills. Personally, I think this is problematic. Requirements seem to vary wildly from company to company, which doesn't help. Sometimes I have the feeling that the title is being used to attract candidates, which I can sort of understand. But that, I think, might be a lose-lose situation, because putting someone without a lot of experience into a genuine CISO job would be extremely stressful, I think, and probably not a good combination. And this has, of course, led to the discussion around burnout for CISOs anyway, where we know that CISOs are shouldering a lot of pressure. And it's an industry problem, irrespective of the recruitment problem. And last but not least, there have been some chats on LinkedIn, etc., raising the problem is the CISO being used as a scapegoat. When something goes wrong, the CISO gets fired. I often say in the cybersecurity courses I give that any residual risk should be accepted by the business owner. It's not the job of the CISO to accept risk. For one thing, they cannot put it in the organizational context and the business context as well as a business manager can. So a few things to think about there. I'm going to pass over now to my guests, and I'm going to do it in alphabetical order. So in fact, I'm going to start with Vanessa. So Vanessa is Vice President of Recruitment at Nexova Group. And Vanessa, you have 5 minutes to say anything you like on the subject.
Thanks, Steve. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm quite interested to be here today to bring a perspective from a recruiter, as Steve was saying. So we've been doing cybersecurity recruitment for almost 10 years now. I started off recruiting for space engineers, and I thought that was difficult until cybersecurity came along, and you have this concept of the purple unicorn with the 5 feet, right? I think this is what you were also referring to with the copy and paste of job description. So it has been quite a journey, but I do have to say that following this evolution in the past 10 years, I do see things progressing in the right way. And it's positive to see that a lot of the initiatives that are being taken by organizations, by institutions, seems to be having a positive effect. Mm-hmm. But the statistics that you were sharing with us shows that it's probably not enough, and we need to do more, and maybe even at a grander scale or a faster pace, right? So the market is continuously evolving as well. It's very dynamic, so it's more like being behind and trying to bring the gap closer. But coming back to the point, as recruiters, we do notice, even in the last 2 years itself, there seems to be more talent available in the market, which is a positive thing, right? There are more graduates coming out. There are more reskilling programs that seems to be available, or certifications that anyone can do if they want to reskill themselves. But we still continuously face challenges. And I would like to bring up a point that we discovered, that we came to a conclusion here internally as well. How do you turn all of this talent into employable talent? And it covers a little bit what you mentioned earlier as well, right? There are talent out there, but the question remains, how are their communication skills? How are their human skills? What is their approach to be adaptable? Because those are the things that are essential in cybersecurity, along with the technical aspects, right? Just being technically strong is not enough anymore. And the second thing that I noticed, and I have to say, we are probably the guilty ones here as well as an organization, is that we always need people with experience. So for job seekers out there, I feel for you. I understand if you look at a job description and you just finish your degree, or you just finish your certificate, and somebody's asking for 2 years of experience in risk assessment or cybersecurity tools, which you don't have. And I think this is also coming from the point that there is not enough practical trainings that is being given in part of your studies, simply because there is just a lot of technology. There is a lot of things that one needs to learn in an educational point of view. So the theoretical knowledge is very strong, but the lack of the practical aspects, it's a disadvantage, I feel, to the people, to the talent who are looking for a job. And companies then therefore either need to have an open mind or take a risk to train those people that quite often they never have. And it's completely understandable, because again, the dynamic of the industry and how things are changing very fast. So having said that, I think there continues to be challenges. I think there's a lot of things that can be done. From a recruiter point of view, I believe that there are a couple of opportunities that institutions, schools, the private sector can take to help the talent be more employable as well, and to allow them to be more receptive to the organization. So I'm looking forward to the discussions further on, based a little bit on these inputs that I just gave.
Very good. So Nina, do you agree? What's your take on this?
I absolutely do. And thanks, Steve and David, by the way, for the invitation to be with you today. Working for ECSO and Women for Cyber, I'm lucky to be at the intersection of, public-private collaboration, working with a lot of different stakeholders in cybersecurity, industry, universities, training academies, but also practitioner communities. And mainly through Women for Cyber, we also have the access directly to the talent and the job seekers. So it's a nice way of being able to assess and understand what are the issues from different angles. I think that my view in general is that if we want to keep up with the fast pace of the tech evolution and digital transformation, we need innovative and we need agile responses to the workforce and skills gap. I don't think we can rely on traditional forms of education alone. Very much an advocate for pushing for upskilling, reskilling programs, micro-credentialing, and also practical skills assessment tools. And I also actually think that companies should be more open to hiring non-conventional talent, because we're increasingly seeing people that are self-taught, that come from non-traditional background. And skills-based hiring has been around mainly, or applied mainly in the US for now, but I actually do think that it's something to look into more, because relying on methods of assessment that actually test for a person's observable abilities to perform a certain job is increasingly the way to go, I think, especially for technical roles. And I do think that when we talk about the skills gap, I'm not sure that we're necessarily any shortage of supply of skills out there. I think perhaps it's more about not tapping into the right pipelines or not having the right mechanisms in place. I mean, I've actually been saying for some time that for me, I think it's quite important to distinguish between the workforce gap and the skills gap. Because for me, whereas the workforce gap refers to the quantifiable need for experts, the number of unfilled positions, and so on, the skills gap for me is more of a capability building gap, and an issue, again, of having the right mechanisms in place to ensure that the talent that's going to come through the pipeline is not only equipped with the needed skills and abilities, but that we know how to hire for it as well. And I think that if those kind of mechanisms are implemented in a sustainable, in an agile way, once again, we'll start plugging some of those gaps a little bit quicker. And so I think that, especially being linked to the community of learners and job seekers, we get a lot of interesting testimonials, and we often hear that people, may not get an interview or get through a second round interview because they're told that they don't have the right formal background or experience. And meanwhile, they're there, but I have the skills. And so for me, there's something that needs to be addressed there to be able to ensure that we are leveraging the full scope of talent and skills that is actually out there.
Very good. Look, you both said a lot of things I wholeheartedly agree with. Let me pick up on a couple of them. I really like this last thing you said there, Nina, about not relying too much or over-relying on traditional methods of recruiting. I think you also said something similar, Vanessa. It seems to me you don't need a degree every time you work in cybersecurity. In fact, sometimes it can be a disadvantage if you're doing a low-level job which doesn't require those kind of skills and your expectations are very high. It's a bit of a lose-lose situation. So I definitely agree with this. And I'm also personally a big fan of on-the-job training. I think there are lots of people out there in industry who have the potential of being very good cybersecurity people. It would be nice to see them given a chance, instead of companies rushing to recruit new talent all the while. So indeed, I share a lot of your point of views. It's a bit difficult to see how to make this transition. What was I going to say? Oh, yes, the other point I would like to introduce, and I would like to have your point of view on before we go on to the next question, as it were. I also notice a very big reliance on cybersecurity certification. And this worries me a little bit. Cybersecurity certification is a very good thing, and I'm in favor of it. But it's one facet of the job. It basically tells you what a person knows. It doesn't tell you what they can do. It doesn't tell you a lot about their soft skills either. And I sometimes think when I look at job adverts that people are just copying and pasting long list of certifications and expecting to get the most erudite person possible for the job. This seems to me to be a problem. So I don't know if you see this as a favorable trend or one that might get a little bit out of hand. What are your thoughts on this?
I just wanted to point out that Daria has joined.
Daria, welcome. So let me just take a little break.
Hello.
And welcome Daria, who is advisor at ENISA and global head of human firewall at Allianz.
Indeed.
I'm going to pass it to you for
here.
a few minutes. Yeah, welcome on board, Daria. So why don't we take a little break from where we were, and you can introduce yourself and give us your main thoughts on the topic of cybersecurity skills and recruitment.
Yeah, hello everyone, and hello fellow panelists, and also to Steve. Thank you for the invite in this call. As a matter of fact, I know the TDL for a very long time when I was working in the team of Steve, so I'm very happy to collaborate on that. Right now, from my role as global head for global human firewall at the Allianz Group, we do have quite important measures, and we do look and focus on building capacity capacity on cybersecurity skills, of course, for the experts in our functions, but also for people that are interested in the cyber domain and would like to come in the cyber domain. So this is an interesting one. For example, last year we had we called it Allianz Cyber Academy, together with some certification companies. So we financed vouchers for training courses, and we got around 30 people, very skilled. And right now I'm calling them colleagues. They are working with us in different teams. So, and they come from very different paths of life. And it's very, very good to see fresh eyes on the cybersecurity dynamic field. So, yeah. And another point that I would like to mention is that frameworks of metrics are quite important for us, and the skills are quite difficult to follow overall. So one measure that we also run is to create all our training material and frame it to the European Cybersecurity Framework, which is run by ENISA, but also with the Mitra attack framework, so that it would be useful to know where the threat landscape is and what kind of skills we should build up, because they are in demand. So I'm always interested to look into this kind of mapping.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, then let me challenge you a little bit. I mean, I've been in this debate for many years now. It's been ongoing for quite some time. And I sort of have a doubt that we have such a big shortage of the skill sets, at least as these skill sets are being portrayed to me. So I don't think we need thousands of cryptographers. We don't need millions of network engineers. You know, we need a reasonable number of both. What I personally think we do need is people who, okay, either have experience or have the ability to contribute in integrating security concepts into the real world, into a business. So have a feeling for how businesses work and can work to make security concepts work in that environment. But of course, I'm the least qualified person to say anything here. So my question to you is, and I'm going to start with Vanessa, what do you think are the biggest missing skill sets?
You mean apart from the soft skills on the technical point of view?
Anything you like. I mean, it's a debate over skill sets in cybersecurity. So I'm interested.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit like Nina was saying, right? At the end of the day, I think a lot of the skills can be learned because cybersecurity covers a broad range of topic, right? You have the very technical, like the testers and the network engineers, very engineering, and then you have other things which are not as technical or doesn't require a high affinity of a technical programming experience or something. So in a broader scheme of things, I believe that everything can be learned, skills can be learned. But what is really missing is some of the competencies that even no matter how technical you are, if you lack certain human skills like the ability to communicate, the competence of a business acumen, the ability to translate, right, assessments into requirements or into the reality of the organization. I think these are the things that are lacking a lot, and you can't really study these things in a book. It's things that you need to learn on the job, or indeed through your experiences. It's things that you need to have, and this is why reskilling certain target groups or reskilling or upskilling works, because you have talent who come with a certain level of business acumen, a certain level of communication skills, or certain level of affinity of a specific way of working. And it's a matter of getting them to learn whatever skills that they need to learn in order to fulfill the task. So in a nutshell, if you ask me, it's really very much on this human skills that is lacking the most.
Right, that's very interesting. Actually, one of the things I did on a personal basis not long ago, my son was looking for a master's course, and I went through the Cyberhead database, seeing what was available throughout Europe in terms of cybersecurity. And my own, I think I estimated over 90% of the courses were purely technical. And this surprised me a bit because indeed I would expect to see more emphasis on soft skills, but also perhaps some, degree of education on the regulatory framework, etc., policy, and these kind of things. So Nina, I don't know, what is your experience? You're very much in this field. Is it really a very technical field? Should it be? What are the skills you think are missing?
Well, I mean, I in total agreement with Vanessa here, because and I still think we need to do more work to actually advocate for the importance of soft skills, human skills, transferable skills, whichever term you prefer. You know, I sit on the ENISA skills working group where we're working on the ECSF. It's not even in the ECSF yet. We're working on that, but I mean, it's increasingly important when you also think that you have a number of hybrid, you know, job roles in cybersecurity, you know, with, you know, cybersecurity sales or whatever it may be. We're seeing increasingly, you know, the intersection between cybersecurity and other disciplines, other sectors, with, you know, increasing legislation and regulation. Not only are we going to be needing a lot of governance, risk, and compliance experts, but I think we're going to be needing people from different domains with skills and knowledge from sector specific domains that can help to actually implement cybersecurity teams in hospitals and whatever it may be. So there's a range of areas that really show us the multidisciplinary nature, the need for a variety of skills. And it seems to me, I mean, of course, there will always be the technical needs and technical jobs. They will always be there, but it's a little bit more straightforward to still sort of push that and sell that. I think that the part of the workforce, cybersecurity workforce, that needs to be equipped with the softer human skills, that's where we need to do a little bit more work. And I don't know if, can I jump on your professional certification?
Yeah, please do, and then I'll pass over to Daria. Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, just quickly say, because I'm not against professional certification. I think they definitely serve a good purpose, but I think that there it's also important to have that extra lever to combine it somehow with, again, I go back to a assessment mechanism, because it's not like a driver's license. You have a driver's license that attests to the fact that you can, I hope, drive a car, but it's more of a life skill. If you did the CISSP 10, 15 years ago, are you today fully, you know, stocked up on the latest, you know, different requirements of the job, frameworks, legislation, regulations that may be required to understand? So I think it needs to be backed up by something else. It can't be standalone sufficiently. But actually, of course, Vanessa as a recruiter will know better and assess whether, is it actually something you're looking for? Is it really important, you know? So
I would actually say that it's not even a skill that these things are pointing out. It's a knowledge base more than anything else, usually anyway. And indeed, the skill is a complement to that. But look, Daria, I mean, you do an awful lot of work in this area. You know, you've taught a lot. You've been in the area a long while. What do you think are the skills that are missing the most in cybersecurity?
Yes, I would use the metaphor of the blue hat and the red hat here. So I am trying to skill in the same time both. So for the, let's say for the CISOs that I work with, I am recently like we want to understand what's coming up with quantum and post-quantum and how to read the dashboards and how to prepare for encryption on that. So those are really pure technical. So for sure we will need to scale up that part. But on the other side, the blue hats, I would like, of course, to scale up more on the what my fellow panelists were saying, and I would name also like critical thinking and the cooperation, and because if you run cyber exercises, most of the time you see that the playbook is not known by everybody, the playbook of cooperation, or maybe you need to know some points of contact in the organization. So when you are like distributed geographically, then the cooperation angle is very, very useful. And that's why you also need to be skilled into how to do that, and the soft skills, I mean. One more thing, when you playing the same metaphor, blue hat and the red hat, is the fact that we do like dashboards coming from all the technical tooling. They are very important because all the sensors are like telling us and giving us qualitative data. However, the analyst who is reading it is for sure the most important part, the human analyst at the end of it. So that person nowadays in 2025 should have an angle of knowing the points of contact, knowing the playbook, cooperating, and knowing where to trigger when which signal. So yeah.
Okay, that's interesting because in opening up today, I mentioned an ISC2 study from last year, and it actually points out that the most valued skills by recruiters, the top one was problem-solving abilities. So that goes quite well together with what you said. But let me come back to Vanessa. I want to switch a little bit towards recruitment now. And again, let me be a little bit provocative. It seems to me that life is very hard for both ends of the chain here. If you're very young, as you pointed out yourself, you know, it's very hard to get experience. So it's a chicken and egg situation. But equivalently, because I'm a bit older and a lot of my friends are at the other end of the scale, I know a lot of very, very, very experienced people who also can't get a job in cybersecurity. They may be weeded out because of their age or whatever. So how do we solve this? I mean, it's hard to say on the one hand, we're missing all these millions of people and then two incredibly rich pools of resources, not to mention what Nina mentioned about, you know, people who have the capability to learn but are not being taken into account at all. What do you think about this? How do we improve this situation?
Yeah, I've also seen a little bit of this trend. Maybe for us it's a little bit particular because in general we tend to go for more experienced people because we have those needs and we have the capabilities. But some of the scenarios that I could think of on around this topic is that I think it's really more on the visibility and the understanding of the understanding of, let's say, companies, right? You've said it as well earlier. The fact you see job descriptions, which makes probably a copy and paste of several job descriptions into one, it also could mean that the organizations that are hiring may not have the ability to understand themselves what they need, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
therefore, people who are having a lot of years of experience quite often are also maybe misunderstood into what they can actually do. So it's really just a misunderstanding on the organization, let's say, who's looking to hire. In general, for the younger graduates or the ones without experience, unfortunately, it is really a chicken and an egg story. And this is where a lot really needs to be done from an institutional level, coming up with programs, allowing them to have more practical experience, right? Why? Because organizations today in such a fast-paced environment, maybe some of them don't have the time to invest, not necessarily in time in terms of money, but I would say really in terms of resources, right? Like look for us, for example, we are in a fast-paced environment. We have a lot of work that needs to be done. Technology is evolving faster and faster each time, and bringing in new people, we need people who are able to come in and sort of go running as well. And
Right.
and sometimes, coming back to your point of the certifications as well, just someone having a certification is not enough, because having a certification is just giving you an assessment, the ability to have that specific skill, but not necessarily to have the right soft skills or the right long-term agility to be flexible and to be transferable within the organization.
Very
So
good.
I think it's
Okay.
just a misperception between both that needs to be improved.
I tend to agree. Let me say, by the way, if there are any people recruiting online, please think about this. It's true that I think getting the job description right is half of the job, and I'm sure all the people listening are well skilled in this. But I do notice a lot of people who are really not getting this right, and of course this I think is part of the problem. But look, turning to a more structural point of view and the way, let's say, Europe is handling this. There are some encouraging things happening. Like if you look at the NIS2 directive and you look at DORA, they've both got articles insisting on the fact that the board level education is much stronger. So they make boards much more responsible in terms of the way that cybersecurity has been run in their organizations. And one can only hope that this filters down to lower managers, that the more sensible choices are made in terms of, developing skill sets internally and recruiting externally. But I think you're very much in this business, Anne. You know the EU environment very well. Are there things we should be doing and we're not doing? Of course, we have this big initiative with ENISA and the Commission and yourself as with ECSO that's going on. Is it enough? Do we need something else?
Well, I think, there's a number of different initiatives, activities going on. I think it's important, of course, as usual, that we try to align as much as possible in these approaches to not be too fragmented. I was actually going to mention, the importance of university and industry collaboration in this domain. And on that, obviously, the European Commission has recently launched a network of industry and academia to work together on trying to address all of these things a little bit closer. So I think that that's very, very important, and I hope that that's something that can grow into a wider network that all of us can tap into somehow, because I think that what that does is, obviously, if the universities are working closely with industry on university curricula, and maybe again on what Vanessa was mentioning earlier on some practical training, or competitions, or hackathons, whatever it may be, something that's going to be equipping the graduates with the needed skills already to come into to start a job, then that, I think that would be a good thing. I also think, and that's something that we do with ECSO and Women for Cyber, is that tapping into, like I said, the practitioner communities and doing very concrete activities like what we're doing with Road to Cyber on job fairs, on building up a European cyber internship program, is tangible somehow. And actually what's interesting is it's not only, let's say, a matchmaking mechanism at the service of the community, but we learn a lot from that, because we engage with so many people through these programs and trying to understand what are some of the pain points, but inversely also what are some of the low-hanging fruit and where we can get stuck in immediately. You spoke about the job descriptions, by the way. I mean, we've always talked about this, like the recruiters, and Vanessa knows, we've always talked about, don't look for the unicorn. If I see a job description that has a menu list of items of, certifications and coding, I mean, you're in trouble. Combine that with the fact that women tend to only apply when they fulfill 100% of the job requirements, we're really in trouble. So I mean, these are things that I always think about, and that's why also we work with our recruitment initiative.
That last point was excellent. It's true. Yeah, there's some psychology in this too. Yeah. Incidentally, before I move to Daria, I did notice not long ago that the US. Sorry, the dog is going crazy. The US has changed its policy at federal level and are now looking to recruit more actively people without a university education. And I think this is a very good thing. I think it's a very wise thing. But Daria, I'm going to ask you a bit of a complementary question. So not so much in the public sector, and I know you've worked also in the public sector, so not that you couldn't answer, but what about the private sector? Could they be doing more, maybe PPPs or something? Or I don't know, are there mechanisms which we could use in the private sector based on your experience that we should be using more?
Definitely, and public-private partnership should be like a focus. And as Allianz, we are also recently more involved in a coalition. It's called a Charter of Trust. So it has a lot of companies, and our colleague will also be co-president on it, Ralph. So I think there will be more done on that. And we are also looking into engaging more with different regions and also the national states in order to support the cyber strategies and the cyber education angle. on that. Another thing that we are also looking into is to train the multipliers in a way together with the UNESCO. So for the grassroots in a way. So we would also run that. I think that also for upskilling overall, I like this angle and concept of cyber citizen overall, because I could use it globally in any company. And one, as an example, one thing that became recently is that as any other company, we are training our people annually on cybersecurity for sure, like everybody. However, colleagues are asking more and more about the training for their families and peers. So they are asking, can we use the same training for our families? So normally the answer would be no. However, probably from this year, we will have a solution for that. So that would be also our angle of how to create more partnerships with universities, creating like hubs of innovation, and why not going even into research topics for the future-proofing technologies. I will use this word. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I mean, one of the things I do is I give courses sometimes at universities, things like this in cybersecurity. And one thing that I have noticed is backs up very much what you say. There's much more interest in how does office life combine with private life. And indeed, I try to incorporate it into the day, because it seems to me we're doing so much more hybrid working. The office is partially in the house anyway. And maybe this is an excellent way to spread cybersecurity knowledge, because one hopes that this spreads to families, etc., and better practices at home. So who knows? I like that comment a lot. I think it's a very valuable one. But I'm gonna challenge Vanessa again. It seems to me that recruiters sometimes get a bad rap, because people see these job definitions going around, and some of them to me really look a bit crazy. As I say, it's I came across the story. One of them was asking for 8 years experience in a certain technology, and the technology had only been around for 5 years or something. So you hear these funny stories. But I think you as recruiters, of course, you're not the ones who put these specifications together, right? You're the ones who go out and look for the skill sets. So do you try and educate your community to be more proactive in producing, reasonable job specifications?
Indeed. But I have to say it's not an easy journey. It's quite difficult to train, to put in that training and put in the idea of, because here we are really speaking about changing the way we recruit. It's not recruiting the traditional way of any other kind of recruitment, right? We are really changing the concept of recruiting. And here we deal with managers, or we deal with clients that are very much familiar more with the traditional way of recruiting, like having a list of 15 requirements, having the university degree, having X amount of experience in order to be employable. So it's really a shift of mindset of hiring managers themselves. We internally, we are still working on it, and we can see as time goes by, the mindset changes, but it's not something that comes automatically like that. I think all the companies struggle with this, and I think it's also coming from a lack of awareness. Again, I come back to the point that there's just so many things happening at the same time, because when you speak about cybersecurity, it covers even the ENISA framework. It has 12 ranges of profiles, right? So it covers a huge scope of work, and as recruiters, it could be difficult to understand all of them at the same time. I just want to jump on a point. Maybe it's a bit related to that as well. Nina was saying earlier, job descriptions that has a menu list of a lot of things. I think also as a recruiter, the same applies to job seekers. When you're a job seeker and when you're seeking for a job, if you give a recruiter your 15 certifications that are in various topics, a lot of fluff, let's say, in your CV. I understand these days AI is being used to write the CV, comparing to the job description as well. So if job descriptions are bad, and if you use AI to write a CV, then your CV would eventually also not be quite good. So I think the same advice goes also to job seekers. You really have to be concise. You have to be clear really about what you want, right? I think people are always afraid to express what they really want because they want the job so bad. So they try to make them, okay, here are my 10 certifications, here is my university degree, but they don't speak really about the competencies that they have, the skills that they have, and be clear about
Right, that's
what
a very good point. Yeah, very good point. Look, I actually have to break because we have a question from the audience. So I'll ask anyone who wants to jump in. And the question is as follows. Are companies willing to work with universities to craft tailored programs? Any examples of this collaboration? And do we need a regulatory framework to enforce this collaboration? So who would like to take this one? Collaboration.
Maybe I will take it. So
Okay.
yes, companies are able to do that. So for example, in Allianz, we have CISOs in all our probably in all the EU countries, and maybe all of them are working with different academies and universities as lecturers. So and this would be the first level of cooperation. However, we are also, as I said previously, trying to build up innovation programs or proof of concept ideas, things that would also interest us, of course, but would also be good for the academic world. One more thing that we are also running is internships, and yeah, I will also look into more types of this kind of cooperation.
Okay. Nino?
Yeah, I would just add that I mean, with our members as well, we see that there's already quite a lot going on at the national level. So, you know, large industry from different member states that work with the key universities that are providing cybersecurity education on indeed tailored programs to be able to work together to kind of also for the companies, obviously, to tap into that graduate pipeline. And working together on co-creating curricula and so on. What's interesting about that, of course, is that then you don't have this cross-mobility factor that I actually think is another point that's very important to bring up, is to ensure that, you know, that the right mobility provisions and regulations are in place to allow people to work freely across different countries. So we break down some barriers there because, you know, especially in the current, I think it's important that we try to also keep our talent here. And, you know, the reality today in cybersecurity is, like you said, Steve, it's increasingly remote. It's, you know, it's not necessarily in an office, you know, 9 to 5 every day of the week. So this is important to cater to as well in the solutions that we look at.
Okay, very good. And actually, you remind me of another comment, which I think will be useful here. You know, having been involved in security for many, many years, I've several times over the years stressed how much context is important for security. So what is good security in one situation is absolutely not good security in another. It very much depends, you know, what kind of thing you're dealing with. And your idea of people flowing more freely has another added value, because this is part of experience. Working in many different environments with many different problems makes you a better security practitioner, I think, because it gives you an understanding of when and to what point you can apply certain techniques and when you definitely should not apply them. So I think that's a really good point. But for the person who asked the question, how would they instigate such a thing? Would the private company contact a university? If it's a university, would they contact, I don't know, ECSO or someone else? How does this initial contact take place? Any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't been involved directly in facilitating those collaborations yet. So they were things that were already in place. I think that when they work with you know, industry thought leaders, experts from different industry that come in and actually participate in the academic programs, which is something we see a lot, especially for the masters and executive masters levels of people coming in from externally to give the presentations. Then they start having those chats about, okay, what can we do to actually tailor this program to the needs that we have, and then the conversations start. Another thing are the job fairs. So the job fairs is, a good trigger we see for engagement between the companies that are employing and then the universities that are there. So this is what we're trying to leverage at the moment and build up a little bit more at scale using the experience of our members. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Look, another thing we haven't discussed so far in this session, which I think is something that could be of great value, is mentoring. So I'm quite a big fan of mentoring. I think it's a really good thing. I don't see that much evidence of it, but then again, I'm not, busy in this area an awful lot. But do you have experience, any of you, with mentoring schemes? Has it been good? Has it been bad? Do you think it's a good idea?
I mean, I'm happy to take that one, just because in Women for Cyber, we run a very successful mentorship program.
Oh, yes,
And
you
we
do.
do
I
it
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, at different levels as well. So we have a general edition that runs every 6 months cumulatively as well, with other editions that may be specifically with some of our strategic partners. But it's very clear, and we're seeing increasingly that, company-backed and structured long-term mentorship programs, they work.
Yeah.
Because we're getting returns of people actually being able to progress in their careers thanks to this, to land a job, to get access to education. And I think that this one-on-one advice is non-negligible in terms of not just the practical advice that mentors bring, but honestly the confidence that they can instill in that person that maybe is trying to navigate this complex environment, this field, without really knowing where to start or all that. So those helping factors there of just showing them the way of this is how you could do, and maybe consider this, and it really helps a lot. And when we combine it with networking events, so they can start meeting, then it's incredible. So we've had a lot of specific returns. A lot of people have been landing jobs thanks to
I'm glad to hear that. Listen, I think I may have cut Daria off. Did you want to say something earlier?
Yes, but I will link it. Thank you, and I will link it now with. Besides the mentoring part, I also think that reverse mentoring works. So reverse mentoring in the sense that you ask what are the new solutions from the people from the just coming fresh from the university, especially in the cyber domain, which is so impactful with AI and cyber and all the new tools and everything. I think it's very, very useful. And we also, in a way, use it. And mentoring, yes. And I would also add that it also works very well if you go in mentoring schemes from different functions or different domains, because you learn different set of skills if you go to another domain and not necessarily the one that you are working in. And one more thing I wanted to add to the previous question is that what would make companies to engage even more in public-private partnerships? Well, the sustainability angle, because companies like mine, we have to report sustainability KPIs, or you call it. So, for example, cyber education is in our sustainability report right now. So that's very important also. And yeah, it makes even bigger impact, I would say.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I like this idea of reverse mentoring. I never thought of it. Yeah. Okay, perhaps my last comment, we're coming towards the end of the webinar now, but I did mention at the beginning when I opened up, a thing I find personally worrying is the way that the title of Chief Information Security Officer is being used. I mean, it seems to me that it can mean just about anything on the marketplace at the moment, from very, very, very technical younger people to very high-level people who've been in the industries for years, who specialize much more in communication throughout the organization, etc. How do we handle something like this? It seems to me people get a raw deal if they apply for a CISO position thinking they're going to be in this grandiose position, and then they end up doing day-to-day system administration. The thing of titles in general, should we be trying to standardize them more, or do we let the market decide? Maybe ask Vanessa that one, because
I was going to answer. In my experience, I think standardizing the titles makes it easier for a recruiter, right? But again, related to a lot of points, the awareness is not there globally yet. So it's also very difficult then to find the candidates, right? So we rely a lot on the ENISA, on the ECSF framework that
Right.
allows us as recruiters, as a team of recruiters, to be able to find the consistencies or to find similarities, right? But I think that should be something that should be really pushed across organizations, because this also helps candidates or helps the talents to identify where they go into as well. It's a very big world to navigate, especially for newcomers or people who are looking to reskill into these areas.
Okay. So look, we're almost at the end. So I'm going to give you each, sort of 1 minute max to perhaps tell me what you think was the most interesting thing that came out of this discussion between us. From my side, I really liked a lot of things. I like this idea of non-traditional ways of recruiting. I think this is very important. The fact that soft skills are important and that it's not just merely a technical battle. Of course, the idea of mentoring and reverse mentoring has come up. So all ideas, I think, which could be really interesting. But let's go in alphabetical order. Daria, what if you were to select, let's say, 1 to 3 points, what would you say that's come out of this discussion that is most important?
Well, I like this skills, not fluff, that was mentioned by our colleagues, and in the sense that, yes, let's focus on the skills, and it's a never-ending story. So yeah, we should really reach to it from our mentors inside organizations or outside organizations. This is also one thing that it's useful. And for sure, I will also take with me this context that is also like, okay, yeah, tell me more about the cross mobility and the context where you want to apply it, first of all.
Very good.
And of course, I will mention the famous 3PPP, like public-private partnership, because this is something that for sure we need. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Daria. Vanessa, what would you like to stress as the chief points?
Mentorship. If I have to choose one, I think that's not enough of it. From a recruitment point of view, I've seen you can find the difference of talent that has been mentored and has not been mentored. You see in the way they approach the job, in the way they approach even as something as simple as an interview, right? I guess they get coached into how to do an interview, for example. So mentorship is something that I think we should push for more, and it's very interesting and should be developed on further. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. And last but not least, Nina.
Yeah, thank you. And Vanessa, I obviously agree with you on mentorship, but what I can say is that on that note, with Women for Cyber, we're looking into if we can develop some sort of best practice guide for mentorship based on what we've run so far, on how to actually implement those kind of programs. So that just as a resource for companies, individuals, whatever it may be. So that's but because I really do believe in mentorship as well. But if I had to pick, I'd pick one that came from me and then one that came from Vanessa. Oh, the one for me is really to embrace conventional and unconventional talent and link to that the non-traditional means of assessing skills and talent. And then from Vanessa, the one about, things are rarely a one-way street. So let's not only look to the recruiters, let's make sure that job seekers as well are putting their best foot forward when they are applying for jobs. So I really take on board that comment, Vanessa, that I liked a lot.
Excellent. Okay. So listen, thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure. Particular pleasure because it's 3 ladies. So that was nice to see as well. So thank you very much for spending time with me. I think it was very useful. And well, I look forward to meeting you again in the future sometime.
Who are still on the call, there will be a recording made of the session in the next few days, probably, what day is it today? Thursday, probably at the beginning of next week, and the short summary report. And the next TDL webinar, the 5th, will be on what is trust.
Right.
Exploring the terminology, and that will be led by Claire Vishik, and that will be on the 3rd of April. But a notification will be sent out in plenty of time. And thank you for the question, which was very good. And